afternoon and many blessings here from Reiko, P. Blackheart, your neighborhood-friendly witch. And ladies and gents, it is that time again. It is Sunday, ready for that detox. And today joining me for the rest of the month is going to be Zeb. You guys remember Zeb? If he would like to say hi.
Hello.
And if you guys remember, he has been with me on previous episodes as we talked about different taboo sexualities, as well as long-distance relationships, as well as dealing and dating people who have mental disabilities, or not mental disabilities, but, mental health issues, including anxiety and depression, and dating them long distance. So today, before we dive into anything, with everything going on, these riots, people fighting for rights, just being acknowledged in the presence of existing in this space, this time, this universe, and being on the same playing field as everyone else, especially that of the African American community, just knowing that their lives matter, we don't want to take away from what this month is. Juneteenth is coming up. Today is the 14th. Juneteenth is coming up where we actually acknowledge when slavery was officially done and our freedom was established. And even after all these years, we're still fighting for equal rights. Also, let's take knowledge into the fact with these riots that the anniversary of the Stonewall riots is coming up. As of June 28th, it would have been 51 years today when in New York, they transgendered African American men and women were sitting here fighting for their rights. Let's take a moment and acknowledge that we're all fighting just to be heard and to live our lives and just to be acknowledged as human beings and that our lives matter. Now, with that being said, ladies and gents, let's dive into when it comes down to pride for that of the LGBTQ community. What does that mean? Where do you lie? Where do you fall down? Let's talk a little bit more in depth of each of those letters when it comes down to what does it mean for pride. Hey, Zeb.
Hi.
Let's go ahead. Let's start. You want to go ahead and define what a lesbian is? I'm pretty sure most of these guys out here already know. Because they be like, oh, my girl kissed the girl, so all of a sudden she's a lesbian. No, not necessarily.
Yeah, I'm positive that me mansplaining what a lesbian is will go over beautifully, but so I'm gonna leave that to you. But what I will say before we get into the breakdown is that everyone because there is this belief that if you are anything other than just a straight, cisgender person, that you're just gay. Which is just the biggest blanket statement that you can make. There are people that are lesbians, there are people that are gay, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, and at this point, they've had to add a plus to it because there are so many different divisions where if a particular definition does not suit every part of you, every expression that you have, that you shouldn't feel as though you have to be mislabeled just because it comes close to what your particular sexual expression is.
But not quite hitting the nail on the head.
Exactly. Like, I'm pretty sure there are plenty of men specifically that are labeled gay, they're actually bi. I'm pretty sure there are plenty of women that are labeled bi that are pan.
That'd be me.
And, you know, like, these are things that matter. Words matter, expressions matter, and we may not always nail it on the head, because with self-discovery, you may think that a label applies to you, but the longer you live and the more you actually get in tune with who you are as a person, since we do live in a puritanical society, finding out all the different forms of expression for your particular brand of sexuality can be difficult. It can be an ongoing process. You can live the majority of your life feeling like you are a lesbian, but it turns out that you're not. You might actually like intersex people. You might actually like trans women as they are women, but think, oh, well, you know, any person that has genitals that I don't particularly jive with is not something that I can get down with.
True.
But who knows? You may meet someone who is a trans woman that does still have the penis they were born with, and your expression of love for this person does not end or begin with the genitals they have. It doesn't necessarily begin or end with their physical appearance.
Exactly.
So, just like even the definition of what a lesbian is, what a gay person is not always down to, you know, what genitals you do or don't want in your face.
That is true.
So, kind of breaking that down, I will take my hat off to you to explain what a lesbian is. So, I am not crucified like the second coming.
Yeah, we're not going to have you do that.
Like I said, mansplaining what a lesbian is.
Oh, because even then with lesbians, we go down lesbian in itself have so many subcategories within it. But basically, the way I'm going to explain it in the most layman's term in the world. It is a woman who likes women. And then if you go down into a femme versus a stem, or, you know, a dyke, or, you know, a stud, however you want to label yourself when you go down into being a lesbian, it is still a woman who likes another woman. They don't have any sexual desire for men, or at one point in time, they may have had the urge or the attempt to just try it out to make sure, but that does not make them bisexual. They may have had an experience that was traumatic that pushed them down that line, or they may have had sex when they were younger with their first time could have been with a guy and realize that that's just not their cup of tea. And the biggest thing that a lot of people don't understand is it is not a genetic thing. It is not a, you know, oh, it's just in their brain, or in some of those heavy religious standpoints, oh, that's just the devil. No, it's not. If a person wakes up one day, or if they've been struggling with their sexuality, then it's because most of these people, especially a lot of those who lived in the Bible Belt, a lot of those who have been suppressed growing up, living in those households that were, you know, against being themselves because their parents were against people being gay, tend to lash out more when they become adults. Honestly, as a woman who has gone through different journeys in my life, I've always particularly knew I liked females to a point. And at first I was just like, well, maybe I'm a lesbian. And I joked, and I mean, when I was younger, and I used to joke saying I'm a lesbian who occasionally likes dick. I'm very picky about it. And that was literally my tagline. All my closest friends know that's what I used to say through high school and like the first part of my adult life. And then the more and more I got into self-discovery, the more and more I realized it wasn't about the gender. It was about how did that person make me feel. And I got bashed by the lesbian society for the longest, especially here down south in like Georgia, Florida, because a lot of those girls who are lesbians, they say that you can't be a true lesbian because you at one point in time dated a man or been married to a man. And in all actuality, that doesn't necessarily mean it. So then I wasn't technically labeled as being straight. I wasn't labeled as being a lesbian. I was just, for the longest, I didn't know where I was. So then after more and more self-discovery, I discovered pansexuality because I have talked to people who are transgendered and I like them. And I have talked to people who were asexual and liked them. It did not matter what they had in between their legs. It didn't matter if they had boobs, if they had ass, if they were skinny, if they were tall, if they were this. It was about how did that person make me feel. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some people I find appealing, like visually, and I'm like, ooh, they're sexy. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to sexually be attracted to them or emotionally be attached to them because of what parts they have or how they look. It was just more or less, I realized I liked people for their personalities.
I think that the difference between appreciation and attraction is something a lot of people have a really hard time understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens a lot when it comes to people that are pan or people that are sex positive.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, you're sex positive and you think that I look good, which means we're gonna get it on now, and it's like that's not what that means.
No, it is not.
That is 8 times out of 10 not what that means. Just because a person is sex positive doesn't mean that they are in a perpetual state of hoedom where they just are completely and utterly enthralled with the idea of hopping on top of you, or that they don't have any feelings, or that sex is literally an activity that is just as mundane or banal to them as binging a Netflix show. So the idea that just because a person is sex positive, or just because a person is pan, or because a person is poly, that they just want to grind on anything with any type of genitals as soon as it gets within humping range is not accurate.
True.
Just because a person is a lesbian does not mean that anyone else that identifies as female isn't safe if they get in a locker room together. They aren't safe if, they take their bra off in front of you, that they're automatically going to get hit on or fingered if push comes to shove and you're in an enclosed space together. It's not, a person's sexuality is not and should not be a source of fear where you have to then be concerned for your safety. And with lesbians and with gay men, that is a perpetuated stereotype. It is a perpetuated idea that your expression of sexuality outweighs your morality. It outweighs your ability to make decisions based on personal merit. It's just, we can be friends and I don't really, care about any of that stuff until you find out that person is gay, and then it's like, man, every time, we got ready to get in the pool and change clothes in front of each other, you were probably fantasizing about me just doing all sorts of horrible things to my body that I wouldn't appreciate, and that's not how that works.
No, and you know what? I have to blame early 90s, late 80s, like, media for that. Because the way they were portrayed in movies, anytime there was a gay notion and things of that nature, it portrayed them as, oh, that's why you knew you were gay, because you were always hanging around me in the locker room and saw me take my shirt off. So before I go even more into detail, because I was going to sit here and say, let's dive into what the definition of gay is. But because everybody automatically thinks that if you're not straight, you're gay. No, gay is not, it's just not something you could just label anybody that isn't straight. You can't just sit here and say, because I get offended, because now I get offended now, because I used to get upset when me being a lesbian, or me saying I was a lesbian who occasionally likes dick. I had a lot of lesbians who bashed me. They were like, nah, you're bisexual. And I'm like, but I've dated people like transgendered, like people who were just going through the process of wanting to change their gender, like their gender. So it's not like it was like me saying that I was bisexual, because bisexual is just you either like female
one
or the other. While pansexual is like, well, I like people who are gender fluid. I like people who have post-op, pre-op, transgendered, queer, drag queens, anything that, as long as your personality matches my personality, your vibe matches my vibe, I am good. And as long as, like, I can develop feelings for almost anybody on the spectrum that is in, you know, the LGBTQ plus community. And that's where one of those things... Huh?
Except assholes. There
Oh,
is a
no.
line.
Yep. Nope. Assholes. And I think the other one would be the whole pedophilia ones. But we're not going to talk about them yet. We'll get down that line in a minute. But we're just going to go ahead slowly but surely into the lettering. And pride is about taking pride in who you are. And the one thing is like I even expressed in my live on my IG, talking about no matter who you are as a human, we're always going to find a reason to judge other humans. And it's even so in the pride community where we come together during like the celebrations and we're sitting here waving our flags. I'm over here waving my pansexual flag, like, you know, the proud little panda I am. And then I got people looking at me like, ugh, she doesn't know what she is. She's selfish. No. That's not being selfish. Yeah. Again, that is that whole matter of perspective. Just because I'm okay with everyone and I could fall in love with everyone does not mean I'm going to fall in love with everybody in that parade. Doesn't mean I'm going to fall in love with everybody I talk to. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of communication, connecting. It's not like I'm going to be like, ooh, I'm fascinated or bewitched by everybody in this room because you all look sexy and we should have a massive orgy together. No, that's not how this works. So, like I said, before anything, it's just, you have to sit down and educate yourself. Especially in the pride community, there's still a lot of segregation between the signs. Talking about, well, you have to be bisexual. No, I don't have to be anything except, you know, be a black, proud woman and die. That's the only thing I really have to do. I don't have to do shit else. And that's just it. And I take pride in who I am. I'm many things and then I'm nothing. And that's just how I always tell people. I'm many things and then I'm nothing. So now, since I've talked about lesbians, bisexuals, and I've dived in a little bit into pansexuality, talk to me about gays. I love my gays. They're the sweetest things in the world. Some of them. Let me clarify that. Because there is some gay men who think that they're better than women. And I really have a problem with that. And that's something I really, really have a problem with. Nobody is better or worse than anybody. I have had a lot of arguments with a lot of gay men who sit here and they want to say, my pussy's better than yours. And I'm like, you have an asshole. That is what you're considering your pussy. And you're trying to tell me that you're better than me. And I get a lot of people, I think the reason why a lot of that comes into play, especially with lesbians too, is that they're saying, well, I know women bodies, so I can handle a woman better than a man can. And I feel like that's the same thing with gay men. Gay men is like, well, I'm a man, so I know how to please a man. Not necessarily. That does not mean you know how to please another man, because every person, every partner is different. You're going to have to learn your partner. That's just it, because every person is different. I think that a lot of people don't realize that what may be okay with one person doesn't necessarily mean it'll be okay with another person. And I think that's where a lot of people got that shit fucked up as well.
I think that may be a lot of ego. Like, there's a big difference between confidence and arrogance. And there's definitely an overcompensation in the LGBTQIA community overall.
Yep.
And that overcompensation is because we do, and I cannot reiterate this enough, I cannot say it enough times, we live in a puritanical society. There is constantly this moral code hanging over our heads, and it is visible in what art we find acceptable, in what images are allowed on TV, in what images are allowed in the news, in the way that we are or aren't allowed to introduce the people in our lives to other people, how our peer groups are established. All of that goes into the way that we recognize ourselves as sexual creatures and what is or isn't acceptable about our sexuality. And when that turns out to be the case, what you have are the super aggressive lesbian. You have the ultra feminine gay man. You have the trans person that is the traditional, and I realize you can't see air quotes over the airwaves, the traditional sassy black trans woman. And all of these expressions of attitude and bravado and overcompensating, or these masculine tropes and stereotypes that they fall into, are a matter of trying very hard to express a pride in the activities that they perform, in the person that they find themselves to be, because that person or those activities are considered socially unacceptable. So when they are going above and beyond, or being what traditionally someone would consider extra, a lot of that is overcompensating for being socially unacceptable, not being able to participate in a family dynamic where they can be accepted and understood. And all of that is it's a deflection. It's a tactic to not have to feel a good amount of shame or self-loathing or the pressure of having to operate in a society that more often than not does not want you. And just like with Black Pride, the Pride movement is about gaining visibility, about gaining social acceptance, about making whatever expression of love the norm. And it's very hard to just be a person who happens to be gay or happens to be trans and mind your own business and live your own life without living out and loud and proud. Mm-hmm. Because while it is an expression of your sexuality and it is the expression of your self-identity, it's the equivalent of walking out on the street and saying, I'm black and I'm proud, and people saying, yeah, shut the fuck up. We don't want to hear that. Because to them, it's not something to be proud of. It just should be a thing that just happens to exist, and we should all get over it, we should all ignore it, we should pay no attention to it. And in that way, it makes it harder for them to think that their love is valid, to think that their sexual expression is valid, to think that them as a person is valid, because the society that they live in doesn't accept them. So they feel the need to be extra. And it's in an effort to normalize that their presence isn't something that should be shamed or isn't something that should be ignored. And a lot of times it's to kind of combat the emotional toll that it takes being a person that is not 100% socially wanted or socially accepted in a society.
Which I agree. I agree cold-heartedly. That's the reason why... Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, if you're talking to someone who's an ally, or if you're talking to someone who does accept you as you are, you don't need to be extra. You don't need to, girl, my pussy's so much better, like that. Okay, I'm glad that you're confident in your sexual ability, but don't trash me and mine because you think you have what a man wants or what a woman needs. Like that does not somehow make you better. It does not take you a step above. Like, there are some people that are like gold star gay or gold star lesbians because they've never come in contact with genitals of a person of the opposite sex. And there are these little milestones where people wear them kind of like a badge of pride because, you know, they haven't had to do the self-exploration. I really hate experiment. Mm-hmm. Oh, I experimented a lot when I'm done. Like, nobody is your science project, so you might want to remove that kind of shit from your vocabulary. It's not an experiment. It's basically that you are exploring. Your exploration, you trying out new things, is not an experiment. It's a journey. And on your journey to whatever your sexual identity is or your personal truth is, if it takes you to a place where you discover who you are and you're proud of that, that pride should not come at the cost of you belittling, downgrading, shaming, or hurting someone else, because as a marginalized person, you know what it's like to be shamed. You know what it's like to be hurt. You know what it's like to be minimized. And you shouldn't do it to other people. It's kind of a shitty thing to do.
True. That is true. Everything is a self-discovery. We're constantly discovering things about ourselves every year. And even then, your taste may change every year. Every time your music taste change, your outfit, the way you think, the way you may like people. You may grow up liking the popular girl in school, and then as you get older, you realize it's not about the popular girl in school. It's about, oh, who's going to be a good mother to my future kids, and this, that, and the other. And, you know, you might fall in love with the girl who you wouldn't have even looked at back in the day in high school because she's an overachiever. She wears glasses and constantly wears her hair up in a bun and doesn't like to go out on the weekends. Like, you have to realize that on the road of self-discovery and growth, you're constantly growing. And one thing a lot of people do not understand is every year you may say, oh, I'm the same person. No, your tastes change, even if it's the slightest bit. The biggest thing about a person is figuring yourself out. We are so consumed with what other people are doing and how they're growing that we don't even pay attention when we're growing or which direction we're going. And it's just like, I always tell people, when you're so focused on what other people are doing with their lives, you are not really paying attention in the direction you're going. You're not really paying attention to who you are, how you treat people, things of that nature, because you're constantly looking at other people versus looking at yourself. I spend a lot of time self-reflecting because I know this to be true. I know in order for me to end up saying anything about anyone, I need to make sure I have my checks and balances in place. Most people will sit here and say, well, you can't be bisexual. Well, you can't be pansexual because you mainly dated men and you never really dated any females, or we never seen you post any females. Oh, you're constantly hyping up your female friends, so you must be dating all of them. And no, I know what I'm saying to them. They're aware of what I'm saying to them. I'm not going to tear them down. If I sit here and I see that they're hyped up and they're doing things and they're looking amazing, of course I'm going to boost their ego. And if I physically like them or sexually attracted to them, they will be aware of it. Because I've actually had people who crashed and bashed me down for posting a bunch of guys up for Male Crush Monday and a bunch of females up for Woman Crush Wednesday. And they're like, oh, you must be fucking all of them. No, that's not how I work. That's not how I am. You're too busy judging me and you're not asking me the questions. You're not asking the right questions. You're just making statements. One thing is, a lot of people don't understand. Pansexuality does not mean I like every single one sexually. Pansexuality just means I am okay with all identities, including those who are gender fluid, pansexual, transgendered, gay, straight, bi, whatever. And if any of them approach me, then yes, I may give them a chance. I give everybody an equal playing field. I don't care if you used to be a man or you used to be a female. I don't care if you do drag. It's about, are you a great person? Are you an asshole? Because if you're an asshole, I'm going to be an asshole back, and our relationship is not going to be great. I treat people the way they treat me. So, and it is what it is. Like, I have to tell people this. So now let's dive a little bit into that, talking about a little bit more into sexual or sexuality. When it comes down to pansexuality, when it comes to gay, bi, lesbian, it doesn't necessarily mean that as a lesbian does not mean that every female I look at, I want to fuck. As a gay man, it doesn't mean that every man that they look at, they want to fuck. As a bisexual person, it doesn't mean that every male and female that they look at, they want to fuck. And as a pansexual, it just doesn't mean that everybody in a crowded room, they want to have an orgy with. That's where we get into asexuality. Asexuality is people who have little to no sexual attraction to people. And that doesn't necessarily mean they don't have sex. I have to tell this to a lot of people. I have a lot of asexual friends. Hell, I am technically on the spectrum of asexuality, being demisexual. And I know a lot of people who are attracted to people due to their intelligence. That doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have sex.
Yeah, those people are sapiosexuals, which can be... Being asexual is not necessarily just the antithesis of whatever your sexual expression is. You can be asexual and bi. You can be asexual and sapiosexual. You can be asexual and pan. You can be asexual and poly. It's exceptionally easy to be any of these things or identified away. Like, you may not have any sexual feelings or sexual urges or feel biological imperatives to hook up with anybody, but you know that if you did have an urge, if you did have the desire to engage in any sexual activity or physical activity, that if you're a man, it wouldn't be with a woman, or it wouldn't be with another man, or it would only be with a person who's trans. And so, yes, you can be asexual and gay. You can be asexual and poly. You can be asexual and trans. You can be asexual and a lot of things. There are some people who are intersexed or non-binary that have no attachment to their genitals at all. For them, they do like the emotional connection. They do like the spiritual connection with another person. They do enjoy physical touch, but not of a sexual nature. A lot of people that have dysmorphia, where it's like, I hate my boobs, I wish they didn't exist. I hate my vagina, I wish it didn't exist. I hate my penis, I wish it didn't exist. But I'm just kind of saddled with it. And because you have certain genitals or certain physical characteristics, it seems like there's an expectation for you to use them or to feel some attachment to them or for them to be a part of your romantic expression.
Mm-hmm.
And this is such a common thing where it's like, oh my God, girl, you got such a fat ass, let me touch it, let me rub it, let me get, oh man, you got such big titties, like, let me squeeze them, let me rub them, like, and you don't like them, you don't want them, you don't feel like they're a part of you, and you want to reject them, but there's something that a person on the outside of you, it's the first thing they see.
Mm-hmm.
It's the first thing they notice. It's the thing that they're attracted to. So when a person is attracted to some physical attribute of yours, and in their head, they want to experience what that part of you is like. And it's part of the reason that they're talking to you. It's part of the reason that they're engaging. It's part of the reason they want to date you or want to get to know you. It's an exceptionally huge turnoff to know that, oh man, you got a 38 double G. Oh my God, and titties are amazing. Like, but if you're rejecting that part of your body because it doesn't feel like you, it's that much more disgusting. You don't want to hook up with that person more because they're ogling a part of your body that you're disgusted by. It actually makes things a lot harder for you to feel that you can have a genuine connection with another person that transcends your genitals, that transcends your body, that transcends the shape that you aren't really connecting with to begin with. And that can be exceptionally hard for people that are asexual.
And that's where a lot of people don't understand with asexuality. Then we go down into like people who only are identified in the asexuality spectrum, who generally do not experience sexual attraction unless they're formed with like emotional strong bonding, which is like demisexual, like me. And like I get that misconception a lot where people just sit here and like, oh, well, you're constantly posing and modeling sexually, so that means you just must be a sexual person. No, it does not mean I'm a sexual person. I mean, I have a lot of people who will sit here and slide, or well, don't let me lie to you. I don't have a lot of people who slide in my DMs, but for those who be like, hey, beautiful, hi, sunshine, this, that, and the other, and they automatically think that, oh, she's, I automatically think people are being nice. Like, that's how I process it. I'm just like, okay, they're being nice. And then when you sit here and you give me unsolicited dick pics, then I'm just like, all right, cool, block. That's not how I work. Just because I model this way does not necessarily mean I'm going to let you stick your penis in me or let you go down on me because you're a female or use a strap on me, whatever, whatever tools you have in your belt. That is going down the spectrum of asexuality. And then when we go dive a little bit more and talk about those who don't really identify with their body parts, and they're disgusted with it. Now we're talking into transgender, where they don't identify or generally express their biological sex. Like men that don't feel like they're men. They feel like they shouldn't have a penis. They're disgusted with their penis. And then there's a lot of transgender people who are okay with their penis, but they don't like their boobs and they want to have boobs or things of that nature. There is so many different parts of that line. And it's something that I don't think a lot of people do their research on. A lot of people do not do their research. The moment they hear the word transgendered or queer or gay or not queer, queer or possibly like drag queens, they automatically think, oh, you must be gay. There is a lot of transgender people who just don't identify with their particular gender that was given to them by birth, their Y or X chromosome they don't identify with, and they could still like women. Like, I know plenty of men who were born men who became women who still like women.
Yeah, it's not, there is no right way to human.
Mm-hmm.
There is no specific playbook, but the thing is, like I said before, we live in a puritanical society, and we love our boxes, we love our labels, and they define us. And if you don't have a particular box that you fit in, or if you don't have a particular label that applies to you, it can be exceptionally frustrating because you don't feel like you have a category. You don't feel like you have a tribe. You don't feel like you have a people, which means the closest you can come, you hang out with those people. It's like, well, I mean, I like wearing black and I do have piercings. Maybe I belong over here with the goth kid. It's like, oh, well, I mean, but I'm also like super into sports, so maybe I belong over here with the jock kid. Like, well, at the same time, I do have like a 4.0 GPA, so maybe I belong over here with the nerd kid. You don't necessarily have to divide yourself into a category just to have a people. Sometimes, because you fit a lot of criteria from different places, you can have more than one tribe. You can have a grouping of people that are in their particular individual categories, but it doesn't apply to you. There are people who have spent the money to go through surgical procedures to be what they think they want it to be because society has dictated a lot to them. My personal issue is that I grew up a sensitive kid. I grew up a boy who did not like to fight, who did not like to play contact sports, who would cry if I saw people being treated poorly, who would rescue like wounded or frightened animals. Like, I was the type of kid who liked to pick flowers and run through the grass and lay there and commune with nature and talk to bugs and write songs. And by every metric, being a young black boy in the late 80s, oh, he gay. And I was told I was gay more often than anything else. I had 2 gay uncles. And the big fear, since I was the only boy and the middle child, was, oh no, we have to protect our legacy. You know, he can't be going out here and, you know, being gay, because then, you know, what'll happen to our bloodline? What'll happen to our family? What'll happen to our legacy? You know, there won't be anyone to carry on the family name.
And that's why a lot of gay and lesbian, especially gay men, go way out and beyond, because they have put pressure on them growing up, especially in the African American community, where we are so quick to disown a gay son before we disown a pedophile uncle, as they joke around and say. It's not a joke. It's like dead ass. It's dead serious. We will be so quick to disown a gay child before we disown that fucking creepy family member who was sitting here touching on younger kids than anything. And that's where I draw the line when it comes to those people trying to fight for their rights. They're like, yeah, well, what about us people who like, younger generations. No, that is not cool. That's still wrong in all actuality. They don't know what you're doing. You are taking advantage of somebody who has no capabilities or rights to understand what is right and wrong. And honesty, I can say this. I can attest to this. As a person who has gone through being touched inappropriately at a young age, and it wasn't like either one of us knew any better when it happened. It was still one of those, okay, we're kids, we saw what was going on a TV show, and as I grew up, I realized that all of that was wrong, because I didn't feel comfortable with it. The person was older than me, and they were just, at this point, doing what they were doing. That doesn't make me just hate everything. Exactly. They were just basically, they were doing what they saw on TV, on one of them old late night Skinamax, because they didn't want to go to sleep. So now I'm the victim of this particular incident, and the thing is, there's a line that is drawn. There is a line that I feel like at the end of the day, when a person doesn't know any better and you're taking advantage of that is weak or unable to do, just like if in a lot of these, the places that people get Baker acted, a lot of those facilities, a lot of those people who have mental health issues, a lot of those people who have issues, a lot of them get their advantages taken over. Like, they could be an adult and they could be taken advantage of. So, like, when it comes down to people who are trying to fight for rights of those who are pedophiles, I do not stand by it. And I sound real hurtful when I say that. There is a line that has to be drawn when it comes down to it. Because you're romanticizing, or you're basically making something that shouldn't be okay. Like, and the thing is, I used to sit here and, as a younger person, when I was way younger and didn't know any better and didn't realize how much people were getting hurt, I used to say when I was 18, because when I was 18, I still looked like I was a teenager. From 18 to 22, I still looked like I was like 13, 14. And what made me start saying what I was saying was I was dating somebody who was older than me. And he used to sit here and say, well, you're a pedophile's wet dream. You look like you're a kid, but you're legal age. And I didn't take into context what that meant and said that joke. But now as an adult, and I'm 29, thinking about that, that's bad. It's bad younger me.
That's ultra cringy.
That is super cringy. And now it's like the things that I did, I think about, I'm like, oh my God, like I used to be okay with this person telling me this, and that's a problem. And even then, like with my sister looks like she's about 15, 16, and she's 23. And she looks like she is still a teenager. And people look at her and they're like, oh, we will say about 18. But I'm like, no, my sister looks like she's somebody's kid. Like, when we are in public, she looks like she could be my daughter, kind of, because of how young she looks in the face. But she's legal age. And now that I think about that, I'm just like, that's disturbing. Like, it's just bad. And I mean, like, I've thought about this for years, but, like, saying it out loud again is just, like, it brings back all the disturbance. So I just feel like at the end of the day, as a person who's pansexual and demisexual, there is a line to be drawn. And I feel like even then, a lot of those people who are trying to fight for rights that are not valid, they're trying to put themselves under the category of into pansexuality. And I mean, I've taken myself out of a lot of pan groups because a lot of people are trying to justify that, talk about age and everything. I mean, as long as they're in legal consensual age, and in some states they try to blur the lines, like, oh, they're 17, they know better. 17, they don't know shit from shit. Like,
in certain states, the legal age, by the way, is 13.
What states are those, and what states do I need to avoid?
There are still certain states where it's 13, 15, and they're like, oh, you know, it's not statutory, that person was consenting. And it's like, yeah, I don't know what, here's the guideline for you. Just just so you're aware, ladies, gentlemen, fucking sexual predators, if a person can't sign up for a credit card, if a person can't join the army, if a person can't get into a movie that is rated R by their motherfucking selves, keep your pussy away or keep your dick in your pants. It's really not that complicated. I understand that everyone is looking to skate by on the whole barely legal, like here you are sitting up at 11:59 on a 17-year-old's birthday, just waiting for 12 o'clock to hit so they turn 18. That's not okay. Mm-hmm. It's not even remotely okay. Because if all this person is to you is a sexual conquest, an opportunity to be the first to break them in like a brand new car, you're a fucking scumbag, and I sincerely hope you die in a house fire.
I would say that's harsh, but
no, because like there are certain forms of sexual expression that are just never going to be okay, and the reason they're not going to be okay has nothing to do with someone hating on your love. Because I mean, yes, I'm positive that you can love a 7-year-old, but can that 7-year-old love you back? They can say I love you, but they don't understand the ramifications of what that means.
That part. That is something.
That's the deal. Any sexual expression, any sexual identity that removes consent, or that operates in a space where it's under duress, you will never, and I repeat, you will never fall under any of the LGBTQIA designations because the other party can't consent. Bestiality, I don't give a fuck how much you love your dog or how much your dog loves you or how much peanut butter you use in the midst of trying to force this animal to make love. No. The answer is no. All a dog can do is follow the directions and the training. And if you train a dog, it's the same way like training a child to do whatever it is to please you. It's fucking disgusting because you are removing their ability to consent. And even once they're old enough to consent, if they're not old enough to understand the ramifications of what that means, because yes, a 13-year-old knows what love is, a 14-year-old knows what love is, but they don't understand all of the consequences of physical engagement, of emotional attachment, of sexual engagement. So no, the answer is no. Even at 18, I don't know about anybody else, but at 18 I was fucking having difficulty dealing with the emotional ramifications of just regular fucking breakups.
Yeah, most people don't get over the ramifications of breakups until they become older. Like, even to this day, I know people who are in their 40s, pushing 50s, who still don't understand the concept of breaking up and how to get over breakups because they're still holding on to a breakup from fucking high school. That doesn't mean as a person that you understand love or the consequences of love and how to get over love. And even then, for those who have mental disabilities, they may not understand how to do it. It's a power thing. For people who are into pedophilia, those are people who are into power. They like control. They like to basically be able to teach or maneuver or manipulate a situation. And I've seen it working at a facility where we dealt with people who were Baker acted, people who were not fit to be out in society by themselves because of mental disability or mental illness or things of that nature, because they didn't understand things. And people were taking advantages of those people because they didn't understand, they couldn't comprehend. And that is one of those things where that you can't put yourself in that pride or the LGBTQ affiliates because of that. I just, if a person doesn't understand or comprehend, stay away from them. Like that's just it. if you should be the logical one into that and understand. Now, when it comes down to sexuality, like what you like to do, what your kinks are, because there is a lot of people who are into those little lifestyles. They're of legal consensual age,
Yeah.
and they like role playing being a little, which is basically, I'm 30 years old, but I like being bratty and dressing up in onesies and things of that nature. And that's fine, because they're of legal consensual age and they're fully aware that they're acting or putting on a persona that is comfortable to them.
And they can navigate
around
the actual parameters of what that is. They can safe word. They can, tell when play and engagement is or isn't over. Just because you have a little or a daddy dom or a baby, or there are people who are into like age play, and I'm not going to shame anyone for, pretending that they're the teacher and this person is the high school freshman who needs to start off well with their GPA. It's like, if that's what you're into, that's what you're into. But the person is actually like a 32-year-old mother of three, like, whatever it is, as long as that person is of legal age, they are consenting, they do know the ramifications of what they're interacting with, that's the criteria for me. And the reason that is such a hard no is that in your youth, in all of our youths, there's someone who was the first emotional or the first sexual attachment that we had. And you, as a 46-year-old man, being the first person to sexually engage with a 12 or 13-year-old girl, she's going to attach herself to you. She's going to be willing to please, especially because you're giving her the opportunity to feel like a woman. These boys who keep engaging with their teachers, like these 11, 12, or 13-year-old boys that are having babies with their teachers, which is how they end up getting fucking caught. This is an authority figure. You as an adult are an authority figure, and there's an inherent need for children to follow the directions of their peers or of the adults in their lives. So they are not going to be as willing to tell you no. So when you're like, well, they were into it, they agreed to it, you're their teacher. You're their father. You're their neighbor. You're their fake uncle, their big brother, their whoever. They are designed in the structure of this society to listen to authority figures.
It's not even designed, it's conditioned. We are told we are told at a young age, when we go through those critical years of our lives, those first 10, 11 years of our lives, to be, hey, I'm your mother, I tell you what to do. I'm your father, you do as I told, not as I do, and this, that, and the other. We are basically conditioned to this. We are told to listen to authority figures. And even then, there's some people who would turn 18 who still listen to their parents and can't say no to their parents because they're still conditioned. It takes years to break condition. And it's one of those things, when you realize that this is what it is, that's how a lot of people are. Now, people who are trying to break those molds at a young age, especially those who live in those really religious, strict households, the guys who are gay and they having to hide behind things, or the pastor's daughter and stuff like that. You can't go to this, you can't do that, because they're so strict. By the time that they're of legal age and they go out, they rebel and they start doing all these reckless things, is because they were already trying to break the mold of the conditioning way before they even understood why, or they were trying to get away from that hold that was placed on them. Now, as a person who lived in a household, well, I lived in two different households. First household, very open. She was okay with things, even if like the whole situation involving all the stuff around it was bad. She was also very understanding of gay people, straight people, and she was accepting of them. Now, moving to my dad is a little bit different, where he is the typical old school, oh, none of my kids can be gay, and so on and so forth. And that's one of those things, like, you would have thought, me being the person that I am, I'll be more out there, I'll be more loud, I'll be more proud. I don't hide that I'm pansexual. I mean, I just don't go out blasting it in front of my parents. I don't hide it, though. I don't hide that I have a thing for females. I don't hide that I have a thing for males. Both of my parents are both on my social media, so they are aware. If they acknowledge it, that's up to them. As my dad has gotten older, he's realized that, you know, I can't dictate a person. I can't control what people do. He's more of, what you do is fine as long as it doesn't directly impact me. That's where he's at now, as he's gotten older. And that is something a lot of the older generations got to get into that mindset of, you know, as long as it doesn't directly impact me, you're not coming to hit on me. It's whatever, do you. But we have a lot of people in society who wants to, you know, quote, love is love, quote unquote, love is love. But then they also were like, well, I don't want to see it. But then you would think, as a person who is part of the LGBTQ plus, that we probably don't want to see you kiss your wife every day. We don't want to see the PDA. We may not want to see that. But you guys don't want us to sit here and show PDA for those who we love and hold hands and things of that nature. A lot of people are so afraid of coming out still because the way society is still painted the picture. A lot of, like I said, a lot of it has to do with earlier media. A lot of it has to do with how the media portrayed them in movies, how they portrayed them in a lot of things. Like, they automatically think because if you are a drag queen that you're gay. There's a lot of drag queens out there who have healthy relationships where they have kids and they have wives that they're with. That doesn't necessarily mean they're incapable of having heterosexual relationships just because of them being drag queens or being transgendered.
Of course not. But the idea is that there's still something a lot of people don't want to understand about the older generation of people. If one day I told you that the way you are, you're insane, and because you're insane, I don't want you anywhere near me. I don't want you anywhere near my family because you're crazy. And then, let's say a couple of years pass. And then all the mental health professionals in the world are like, oh shit, they're not crazy at all. This is actually a valid form of them expressing themselves. And then you just release them into society. The people who have been hearing for years, nope, that person's crazy, nope, that person's crazy, nope, that person's crazy, are not going to just jump on the bandwagon of, oh, well, they must be cool because the doctor said so.
Mm-hmm.
There is a problem that most people don't want to consider because they can go all the way back to the time of Caesar and realize, all right, gay relationships were accepted, you know, men and men, women and women, like it was, you know, there are these different forms of love that the Greeks had and everything. You know, there was a point in time where the Catholic Church actually did marry same-sex couples way back.
Man, I always say that when you look at the history books, especially when it came to like Romans and Greek like history, they used to have orgies, and majority of the orgies were men. There were no real females in these orgies. It was, back in the day, it was accepted, it was okay, it was the norm. And I feel like the only reason why they changed the rules and the regulations when it came to the Christian society giving same-sex marriage the okay to go back and forth, just like, you know, it was okay for us to smoke weed before they basically was like, let's criminalize it if you smoke weed and sell it. I'm like, when you look at it, when they changed the rules of the Bible, they changed the rules of religion, they changed the rules of society, somebody got hurt down the line and they was like, this isn't right. That's what I feel like at the end of the day. Somebody wanted to marry somebody of the same sex, got upset because the person turned them down. Now they're, oh, well, since you didn't want to marry me, nobody can get married. That's just how people are. Hurt people, and that's just it. So, of course, when it comes down to it, it may not be the truth. I mean, honestly, it just may be somebody may have been disgusted. They may have not experienced love and they were experiencing jealousy. And they were watching two gay people happily, married, and then turn around and they trying to have a regular relationship and they can't keep one. So now they band together with a bunch of other people, go into a bar one late night, talk about, man, I can't believe she won't marry me, but gay people can get married, or a man can marry another man. And then another person over here is like, yeah, you're right. I had a girl, I tried to sit here, propose to her, and she turned me down. And now you got a whole crowd of people, because now an earshot another person heard, and they're all in agreement. Now you got a group of people who are basically on the same bandwagon because they overheard one person ranting, bitching, and raving, and now they're like, we should get this done because we're hurt. With this whole mob mentality. And that's just it. And it's how it is. It's not that particular case. People don't deal with heartbreak in the best way. Everybody is different. You will always find love. And the thing is, as a person who loves love, love is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Whether you find it with somebody of the same sex or different sex, somebody who's post-op, pre-op, if you find love in yourself, then that's all that really matters. At the end of the day, I tell people like this: self-love is the best love, self-care is the best care. And I always tell people that in order for you to find love, you need to love your fucking self first. You need to take time, work on yourself, figure yourself out. Because I hear a lot more than cases than others is a lot of people who are in heterosexual relationships sitting here saying, woe is me. Why can't I keep a man? Why can't I do this? You need to love yourself first. At the end of the day, pride is pride, love is love. But the biggest thing is you need to be true and honest with yourself and love yourself. Stop looking at other people's houses. And if your best friend happens to be gay and they come out to you, that means they trust you enough to tell you, hey, I found self-discovery. I found out during the process of my self-discovery, found out I love myself, to be honest with myself. And because you're my best friend, I want to let you know, hey, Zeb, I like everyone equally. It's about their hearts, who they are, whether they were born male, female, gay, straight, whatever, transgender, non-binary. I love them for them.
You mean it has nothing to do with the color of their skin, but rather the content of their character?
Yes.
I mean, I remember some dude saying something about that. But like I was saying, the idea that a person is or isn't deserving of love, the idea that a person is or isn't acceptable in a society does go back to what I was saying a moment ago, where a lot of your parents, a lot of your grandparents grew up in a society where everything that we understand is valid and acceptable was considered absolute insanity. There is a video called Reefer Madness, where if you smoke weed, you will kill the idea was if you smoke weed, you'll kill your parents, you'll crash a car, it's a gateway drug, you'll eventually end up homeless on the street, giving blowjobs and handjobs for drug money, you'll lose your mind so much so that you kill someone or crash a car, all because of weed. And now that people have gone back and realized, oh shit, marijuana has all kinds of medicinal properties. Fucking hemp has all kinds of medicinal properties. They've had to turn it back, but there are still people, even now, like stage 4 cancer. They don't want to use medicinal marijuana, even though it is the only thing that will give them any kind of relief, because it's been criminalized and it's been demonized. People don't understand that sexuality falls under the same purview. That there was a point in time where being gay was listed in the dictionary, in medical journals, as a mental illness. That if you were gay, you were basically fucking insane. That if you as a trans person were telling them, oh, well, I feel that I am a woman and that this is the wrong body. Oh, really? You get to be labeled a schizophrenic.
Oh, and they would sit here and they used to hospitalize transgender people. They used to
not just hospitalize, lobotomize.
Oh, I'm aware. They used to lobotomize them. And and even then, you taking a part of who they are and just completely erasing it. And then you're taking away, like, they couldn't explain it themselves. People don't understand that science is not perfect. Genetics is not perfect. If we were perfect, we wouldn't keep evolving. We would have been like, this is it. We're done. And as we get older, we notice that each generation is different. It's because they're evolving. And that's just it. As humans, we're going to evolve. As organisms, as things that have any multiple cells, we are going to evolve. Our cells are going to evolve. So it's not a mental thing. It's a genetic, it is a coding, it is whatever you want to call it, but it's anything but mental. Because mentality can be changed. Mentality can be changed. They used to sit here and take people to those quote unquote Bible camps to reprogram those who were gay to believing that they were straight, and they were never happy. And even to this day, there's still people who are like that, especially in the Christian society. There has been a few churches I've gone to because sometimes you just need a place of quote unquote worship. Even if I am not Christian, I am still very much a witch. That is, it is what it is. I believe in multiple gods, and I feel like at the end of the day, it may be one God that has come into different visions, but at the end of the day, who will know until you die? You really don't know. For all you know, it could be a void of nothingness. So I've still to this day see people, especially that guy that's like that people joke with, talk about, I don't like men's anymore, and I have been delivered. Baby, you still gay.
Yeah.
You are still very much gay. I love you to death. Like, you are the cutest internet troll in the world. I know you probably are dead ass serious, but in all actuality, that is, again, a form of programming. This person has been programmed to believe in order for them to be saved and delivered, they need to be straight. And that contradicts everything you learn growing up as a Christian, that God will take you and accept you as you are. So for us as humans to sit here and say, well, you're going to hell because you don't like the opposite sex, and that you engage in these particular acts, that you're going to hell. So you're casting judgment, which technically is also a sin. So I want to let you know that you're also going to hell for that too. I throw that back in Christians all the time, and they fucking hate me for it. But the only thing that I could possibly agree on is there is a special part in hell for people who are pedophiles. Like, there's a special deep, dark corner in hell for them.
If you are offending, because that's exactly what it is, you are a sex offender, sir or madam. If you are offending against children, if you are offending against animals, if you are doing things that are leaving indelible marks on non-consenting adults or creatures, or even objects, like, you should probably stop.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's a compulsion, if it is anything else, then seek some therapy. Reach out to some mental health professionals if you truly want to get better. But if honestly you are selfish enough that all you want is what you want, and if what you want is to get off no matter the emotional cost or the collateral damage, then if you'd like someone to stop you, since you can't stop yourself, I mean, I know a couple of guys with a van and a baseball bat that would be more than happy to come and assist you in your transition from being a manipulative, sexually assaulting scumbag to a higher plane of existence. But as I was saying before, like, basically, your sexual expression is valid. But the people, your parents, your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, they're not always going to accept it. They're not always going to understand it because it goes against everything that living in a society taught them when it was their time.
Exactly.
So, like, the idea that literally being gay was a mental illness, if you were a Nancy boy or a bull dyke or a sissy, or if you
words.
just wasn't right,
a tomboy,
as far as they're concerned, or a Nancy boy, whatever the case is, there were plenty of unkind terminologies. If you were a tranny, as they would say fucking back in the day, all of these horrid fucking expressions were a reflection of a society that was told, you're sick, you're crazy, you shouldn't exist. Even though they've existed for hundreds of thousands of years in every phase of society, you were considered abnormal. And the norm for them was a society that was clean and clear and easily defined.
Pleasantville.
Pleasantville.
White picket fence. Pointville, like Pleasantville, where you had a white picket fence, you had the ideal trophy wife, a wife that didn't talk back to you as you went and worked your 9-to-5 job, and basically they painted a picture that was unrealistic. And I feel like...
And that was a picture you had to live with.
And that is the picture people lived with. We are a different generation. The generation below us is going to be a different generation. And the generation that is above us is a different generation. It is a different time, a different century. They are conditioned to what they were growing up to. And as a generation that is fighting for equality and equal rights and mattering and making sure that our voices are heard and that our lives are valid and it's acknowledged and that it has some kind of value behind it, we need to understand that people are different. Every person is different. And you can either accept that they're going to be different or you can get the fuck out their way. Because at the end of the day, you want people to accept you for you, but then you don't want to accept others for themselves. Whether you are gay, straight, bi, pansexual, asexual, demisexual, pseudosexual, whatever. It is okay to be you. Your love is valid. What is not okay is being an asshole.
And don't believe for a moment that just because the society that came before you has these beliefs, that there are beliefs you need to adopt. There are some of you who have parents who are bi, or who are gay, or who are trans, who will never accept that about themselves because they've been taught that it's evil, that it shames the God they believe in, that it would shame the parents that they had, that it would bring dishonor on their family, that without accepting that there was something wrong with them, that you wouldn't exist. They wouldn't have you if they had stuck to this whole gay phase that they were going through. And there are certain places where they were allowed to kind of explore that. It's like, oh, it's college. Everyone does crazy things in college. And it's like, yeah, that's fine and dandy that you allowed yourself a little leeway, a little rope to kind of go out into society and try to discover your true self. But they are honestly set in their ways. The idea that it's going to upset society, or that from a religious standpoint, that you wanting to marry another man or marry another woman, or to be trans and go through whatever transition it is that you go through, all of that are just signs of the devil and the signs of the times that the end times are upon us. And it's like the idea that your choices are going to break down society, the idea that your choices are going to divide your family, the idea that your choices are going to send you to some type of perpetual hell where you will burn for all eternity. These are the things that are your parents and your grandparents' fears. These are the things that keep them from giving you the love and acceptance that you want or need. And honestly, I understand that fear on a fundamental level. Because if somebody told me, oh yeah, you know, your daughter can marry whoever she wants, but just so you're 100% aware, with her doing it, she's going to be tortured in her afterlife for forever. That idea would definitely scare me. But her happiness and her lack of happiness, her marrying a man she doesn't love, her being with a woman who treats her like shit, her sticking around in a relationship where she is being taken advantage of by a man just because he's a man and he's older than her, making her perform some unspeakable acts that she's not into, and she feels she needs to conform to that just because he has a penis, is far less acceptable of an outcome for me. That's a motherfucking no for me, dog. Like, I'm not with it.
Yep.
So whoever it is you are, and whoever it is you want to be, I know you want to go to the family barbecue with your partner. I know you want to be at the family reunion introducing him to your cool cousins or your laid-back aunts or your other relatives. You want, your grandpa to be able to see you and another person together and just be happy that you found someone that loves you and accepts you for you. And the reality is that may never happen. And as sad as that is, as hurtful as that is, sometimes you need to be the change that you want to see in the world. So while you can't expect that of your grandpa who was in World War II, what you can do, grow up being as open and honest and accepting as you can be.
Because if you can be old, if you can sit here and be open and honest about yourself, I tell people a lot of times, especially when it comes down to it, the people who you consider your family doesn't necessarily have to be your family. The people who are willing to accept you for you, being unapologetically you, as long as they know you're happy, they care about your well-being, they want you to see you to be successful and flourish, those are the people that you can consider your family. Those, not the people who you grew up with, not the people that raised you, because if they're not accepting of you who being you, or they're not accepting of anything, because like I said, there's a lot of people, a lot of the older generations who are conditioned to what they grew up with, and there's no changing that. You can sit here and talk to them and try to convince them of your ways until you are black and fucking blue in the face. But are you truly happy? If you're constantly fighting the battle with your family, you are not going to be able to truly be yourself. You're not going to truly be able to find love in yourself or find the love that you're looking for in your journey of self-discovery.
Yeah, that awkwardness, that uncomfortability, that judgment is something that you're going to escort your significant other into, and they're going to have to feel that awkwardness. They're going to have to feel those eyes of judgment on them. They're going to have to be looked at as the seducer who led you astray. And that's not fair to them. It's not fair to you. So the best thing you can do, like I said, accept yourself, grow up, become older, have children, whether it's biologically or through adoption or a surrogate, whatever means it is. And you be the grandpa that they can bring their kids to the reunion. You be the uncle that when they call and say, Dad, me and Steve are getting married. Me and Monica are finally, tying the knot or whatever. Be the person who your parents can't be for you. Be that person for your kids. Be that person for your siblings' kids. Be that person for the next generation. And there will be some catharsis in it for you. I promise you. Knowing that you can be the person that you needed when you were young is such an exceptionally beautiful thing. The fact that I have a daughter that I've told, like, and it's subtle things, and she's like, "Oh, what kind of man do you think I'm gonna marry when I grow up?" And I'm like, "Well, whoever you marry, whatever woman or man or person that you fall in love with, I think they're gonna have to treat you this way. I think they're gonna have to do these kinds of things for you. I think they're gonna have to nurture your creativity." And I don't put the idea, "Oh yeah, well, whenever you find a good husband," like, maybe she doesn't want a husband. Maybe her husband will have breasts. I don't know. And I'm not going to default to what I was taught growing up and put that precedent in her head so she feels the need to bring home some strapping young lad to impress me. Whatever she wants, she can have it. And as long as this person is treating her well, not taking advantage of her, putting a smile on her face, and she is living her truth, that's what matters. That's what anybody in this community is asking for. But when the LGBTQIA community overall is looking for something they feel, since a lesbian is not bisexual, since a gay man is not pan, since a pan person is not poly, since a poly-pan person is not trans, that they all have to fight for their rights individually. They all stand under the same banner, but their rights are very separate. Because while it's okay for most people to see a lesbian with another lesbian and two women making love is beautiful, apparently two men making love is gross. Apparently a trans person is just out here to trick you, because it's like, oh, you see a nice shape and some boobs, and the second you all get back to the room, oh no, a penis.
Or my favorite
They're
part,
just out here to trick poor straight men into these gross debauchery-related situations. And each one of these struggles, each one of these false ideologies that people have, make it harder for them to fight as a group.
And then it's also some people who's on that spectrum too that are transgender post-op, pre-op, and they will be in relationships with people for months, years, and not tell them that they had a gender reassignment. So it's some people who do make it look bad for those who are trying to generally live a best and fullest life. So again, it is about how the PR is when it comes down to this information. We're all equally trying to fight our own rights and our own happiness, and to be acknowledged for what we are and live our best and truest lives in happiness. And that's the only thing that's going on with the movements that are going on now, that is going on with pride, that is going on with all these protests. All of these things is to signify change, and we're trying to do that. And again, the best way to live or to start that change is to be true and honest with yourself on who you are and fight on the side that is right. And just know
it's a hell of a fight.
It is going to be an ongoing fight. The moment you acknowledge that you are who you are, that you may love women or love men, that you are going to get bashed by society, whether it's by random people off the street, whether it's your parents, whether it's your grandparents. It is about you. You decided to walk this path. Be ready for the trials and errors that come with it. In life, whether you are straight, gay, bi, pan, you are going to deal with trials. You're going to deal with tests. You're going to deal with people judging. It does not matter. As long as you are happy and true with yourself and you keep fighting for what you believe in. And at this moment of time, because I know we're going to have to do this into another part because we done pushed past the hour mark, I want people to know before we go into next week's episode is that you need to be honest with yourself. Stop looking at other people's houses. Stop looking into other people's lives. Look at yourself. Are you happy? Are you living your truest and best life? Are you still on that path of self-discovery? because every day you are constantly evolving. I want people to know before we continue on for next week that it is okay to not be okay. Self-love is the best love, and self-care is the best care. Because at the end of the day, with everything going on, with the memory of Stonewall, with the protests, Black Lives Matter, Juneteenth, everything going on, to take care of yourself, your energy, and we will dive more into this subject next week. And just remember, I love you guys, that your love is valid. Zeb has hit the nail on the head when he says this, that your love is valid. And you have to live your truest life, and don't let nobody else tell you how to be you. Until next week, guys, from me and Zeb, I hope you guys take care of yourself. Have a good week.